Everyone wondered how the world would end. But December came and went. The movie 2012 was laughed at more than when it was released and thrown into bargain basement bins everywhere, better as a coaster than entertainment. That's what I use my copy for. I wonder if that woman is still waiting at the top of the mountain in France for the alien spaceship to take her away. The only reason the men in white coats haven't taken her away is because they can't be asked to walk up the mountain. But life carried on as normal. I can't wait to tell my kids, if I have any, how I survived 2012 bird flu and swine flu. Load of shit. It was media sensationalism and hype like that led to our current problem that started 8 hours ago. This is how the world ends. I woke up late as usual, staying up watching TV that I had no interest in. 25 minutes to get dressed and get to the bus stop for the staff bus that ferries staff from site to site. I threw my clothes on and walked to the bathroom, spent 5 minutes fighting my hair to stay down or in some kind of semblance of style. I gave up, winked at the mirror, just a weird habit I have. I work in a hospital, nothing fancies, I'm just the cleaner, but it pays my bills just about. The walk was the usual uneventful, freezing cold, rainy misery you would expect from southeast England in January, but at least short enough not to be soaked to the bone, but long enough for a smoke. After stepping in sick from the night before, drunk, swearing and putting out my fag, I crossed the road, seeing the staff bus already waiting. I used to walk the 2 or so miles to the hospital, but that got old real fast when the rain of summer ended and the freezing rain of winter began. I got on the bus, the driver completely blanking me as usual. I made my way through the narrow aisle, looking at the still half-asleep faces of the 7:30 Monday morning shift. I sat in my usual spot at the back on the left, always the same spot. That's the thing about commuters, always sticking with the same old seats and spots. I plugged my headphones into my phone and dozed in my seat, the scenery passing by my blank gaze. The bus pulled up outside the hospital main entrance and the passengers slowly disembarked in one slow line, ambling forward. The revolving door was still acting up, still stopping halfway through its rotation, keeping you out in the cold for a bit longer, like it had some personal disdain for you. I walked through the lobby, already starting to bustle with people who had gotten here far too early for their morning appointments and could now enjoy a 2-hour wait staring at a screen that would tell them they would have to wait an extra hour on top of that because someone was late or sick. Hospital staff are always hypochondriacs. Oh well, at least they could have a disgusting sandwich from the shop, both disgusting in price and taste. I headed down, ignoring the lift, asking the stairs down 2 flights, swiping my card, signed in, and walked off without a word to anyone. I already knew my ward for the day, same as every other day for the last 3 months. Not that I minded, I had worked with this group for a while now. They knew me, I knew them, they were a good group. I took the lift this time, so doing 4 flights of stairs at this time of the morning, headed past the maternity ward, swiped my damn card again, headed down the corridor to my area for the day after a brief argument with the card scanner, which seemed to not want to read my card, mainly because I was trying to swipe my ATM card. I should really use my wallet. I walked through. My ward is basically 3 corridors in a Y-shaped, 10 rooms, 5 on each side, a nurse's station on the base part of the Y and the other 2 parts having 10 rooms, a nurse's station on each side, and to the left a large waiting room where there was rarely anyone waiting, mainly due to the fact there was another entrance there which had a swipe card reader, so no members of the public could get in unless they pushed the buzzer and waited lumens for someone to respond and let them in. I muttered good morning to the nurses who were just getting their updates on patients from the night shift and headed straight onto my walk-in cupboard. I spent some time fighting the cleaning trolley out of it. Someone had somehow managed to wedge it behind a stack of paper towels. I pulled it out and walked in, took of my bag and coat, threw them on top of the cupboards, and popped open a can of Aya brew. I was really starting to get addicted to that stuff. After 15 minutes, I realized I was on my own for the day, or at least until 11:30 when the next shift would be on. 4 hours on my own. God, I love Mondays. After a fun hour and a half of scrubbing toilets and emptying bins, the volunteer pushing the trolley with the newspapers came round. I got a paper and a Red Bull. He didn't stock Aya brew. I retreated to my cupboard, downed the rest of my Aya brew and started on the Red Bull, browsing the paper. Gun control controversy. Why do Americans need an automatic weapon? You're not John Wayne, and this is not the Wild West. Taxes, Jimmy God, will that ever end? The door opened. It was Jade, the nurse's aside. She was short, black hair, pale face, reasonably good looking. She smiled. Patient's going home, room for you to clean. Oh, give her some. She grabs my Red Bull and takes a swig. Morning, Ringo. You're welcome, by the way. Fuck off, she replied, laughing. Which room? Number 22. Just do a normal clean, nothing fancy. Could you start it now? A and E have a patient. They eat up here quickly. The fun never stops, does it? I muttered. She smiled and left. I looked back at the paper. Sports would have to wait. A patient always leaves something behind when they're discharged from hospital: socks, a coat, chocolate, a pair of false teeth. Once, this time it was an old leather-bound Bible, Mrs. H. Collins, written on the inside page, "Love, Frank, kiss." I put in my pocket. It obviously had emotional value, and I didn't want to put it out where odds were I would end up spilling cleaning fluid on it. This room was a little different from the others. It was on the top left of the Y of the ward and was an isolation room, although I had never seen it used as anything other than just a general patient room. It had two entrances: a plain simple pine door that led directly into the room, and another pine door that led into a small room with a table and sink before another door lead into the room. The room had a vent and a pressure monitor. I had no idea how it worked, just if you didn't close the door properly, after 5 minutes it would start beeping madly, driving you insane till you closed it and hit the silence button. After mopping the floor, I told you to, it was all done, and went back to the cupboard and caught a glimpse of the new patient coming in. He was in his 50s, a little heavy, thinning grey hair, big red nose, sweating profusely, but pale as hell. The guy looked like death. I wasn't too concerned about the mask. This ward was a respiratory ward. All the staff knew what they were doing. They were dedicated and they cared. If he could get better, we would make it happen. I let the cupboard door close behind me and went back to the sports section.